hope you guys have a chance to check them out. If you like what you hear, just know that that's going to be available to you to see whenever you need to see any of these straight from support webinars. But to get started, I'm going to go over what tutorials are available to you in SolidWorks. So I've actually done a whole other straight from support on the home screen here, and it's a really nice feature that was introduced. But what you can get to from this home screen, I'm actually just going to pull up SolidWorks right here, so I can go to my home screen, and it actually has this whole tab called Learn. And what it allows me to do, it allows me to quickly see different ways that I can actually jump into training in SolidWorks. And the first thing I want to introduce is just the oldie, the thing that I've seen for a while. If you guys maybe took SolidWorks in college, you might have even gone through some of these tutorials. I know I definitely did. That's what our SolidWorks class was in college. And it's the SolidWorks tutorial. So I'm going to do that again. What I did is I went to my home button and I clicked on Learn, and I went to my SolidWorks tutorials, and I get this extra pane. And this is where having an extra screen in SolidWorks really comes in handy, because I like just throwing this over there, and then I can work within SolidWorks. But I'll work in a dual screen here for a little bit. So you have a getting started. So a lot of people try out with my introduction to SolidWorks, creating your first part, and you just go through and you create this part. You can create parts, you can create assemblies, drawings, and then they get into a little bit more complicated techniques. So fillets, revolves, patterns, lofts, surfaces, even some sheet metal, a lot of great sheet metal ones, design tables, weldments, using your SolidWorks toolbox, and just a lot of other stuff. And then if you even want to get more advanced preparation, these are the tutorials you'll see when you go and look at your CSWA or CSWP classes. And if you're looking at simulation, you have some motion, sustainability, static analysis, and we can even go to, okay, what's available in simulation premium. So we've got nonlinear, composites, linear dynamic. All of these great tutorials, they're all broken up here. There's a lot of great stuff. If I go to all simulation tutorials even, there's over a page of them. And then if I go back and go to just all SolidWorks tutorials, there's a whole page of those as well. Everything from sustainability to surfacing to 3D sketching. And I'm just going to jump into one real quick. So let's go into my parts. And notice I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you guys can definitely do that if you want to. But what they say is, okay, tell me what to do. Well, click a new part. Say I'm completely new to SolidWorks and I don't know how to create a new part. I click on this button and it highlights it up here for me. So it actually says, hey, you want to click this button, and I click part and I open it up, and then, well, where's my save button? And I hit here and it actually highlights it up here for me, and that's really nice. And it gets even better when you're going in and looking for like box extrude, it flips it open, and the corner rectangle, and it flips it open. And what these are nice step-by-step instructions that will lead me to create this part. And if you notice here, it's quite a few long, so I'm not going to go through all of it, but it tells you how to make a sketch. It gives you pictures each time you're going through. So if you've never touched SolidWorks before, this is a good place to start. But like I said, it's this detailed on all of the other ones as well. So maybe I know how to create a boss extrude and all that, but maybe you're interested in learning about revolves. You haven't worked with that a lot before, or you're interested in learning about 3D sketching or surfacing. This is a really great place, and like you saw, it just really goes in depth on how to do all that. It has a lot of pictures, and it's a really easy method to follow along with. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out there, was the just the ones available when you click on tutorials right here. Like I said, you have all of these available to you, and it's really nice. The next thing I want to talk about is this My SolidWorks training. So we're looking at our home button. They actually have a My SolidWorks training page, and I'm going to pull that up. You click on it. It has you log in if you have My SolidWorks already. If you don't know what My SolidWorks is, let me just go over that real quick. So My SolidWorks is a new thing they introduced, and what you can do is there are different tiers of it. Some of them are included with your subscription. Some of them are free when you log into My SolidWorks, and there's one that you have to pay. I believe on here it says $360 per year. And then also if you're a student using SolidWorks, that's included with, there's a student version that's included with your active student kit. And what this is, so with My SolidWorks, you get access to all of this online training that is available. And if you look here, this graph is really nice because it points out what's available with each version. So if you're guest, that's your completely free, I don't need a subscription. You can see a product trial, there's some tutorial videos, you could still buy the e-courses if you wanted, but you don't get those prep courses. When I go into standard, which is included with your SolidWorks subscription, you get 600 product tutorial videos, and you get those prep courses for your CSWA. Once you move on to professional, you can even get for your P and E, and same with their student, you get those prep courses there. So it's just a really good thing to have in your tool belt. And I'm going to take a look at what My SolidWorks is real quick. So I'm going to pull up My SolidWorks, and this is my SolidWorks. I have My SolidWorks Professional, but I'll show you how I can search and see what's going on. So I have CAD models, I have forums. My SolidWorks is a great spot, not just for tutorials, but you can look at the forums, you can look at different CAD models. There's a lot here. But let's say I'm interested in surfacing. So I want to look at surfacing. So I see a few forums got pulled up here, but I can actually go down and, you know what, I'm actually looking for training on surfacing. And here's all these surface modeling trainings. And if I wanted to know, okay, what was available if I were a guest, what's available in standard, and what's available in pro, I can show you guys that here. So this is actually available, this lesson is available for that guest. Ignore the e-courses for right now. Those are just there because I do have e-courses. So you get this intro to surfacing as a guest. You would also get, if you had standard, you get creating this blend or fade, so you get an additional one there. And then if you had professional, you get all those plus a surfacing prep course that you could take in a learning path and editing some imported geometry. And these learning paths are really cool because when you click on them, you actually get several sections. So it's like you're taking a class and it's broken up into here. I click on that, it loads. I'm gonna mute this real quick. And what it does is it loads a video, I begin the lesson, and some of these are actually point and click. So I go through here and I click in here and I'm actually working live with my training, and it's really nice to have in here. And I could save this if I wanted to take this training later, or I wanted to pick back up on it later. So it's nice that it's broken into these 10-ish minute sections so that I can always jump back in and see what's going on. And here's an example of me interacting with it here, so I can like download the samples and just keep going from there. All right. And if I go to training, I just have lessons, e-courses, learning paths, and product introductions. And these are pretty cool too. If you're ever just looking for, they're adding more of these every day, but if you're ever just looking for, hey, what is SolidWorks simulation? This is a great thing to have here to tell you, just a great product introduction here. And I'm going to go back to here. So like I said, you have lessons, learning paths, product introduction, and you have tons available in guest, standard, and professional. So be sure to check that out. If you're on an active subscription, you have a standard, so go ahead and check it out. And then finally, I just wanted to mention, with you guys being, if you guys are Fisher Unitech customers and have ever taken our training, you have access to our online training. You can, these are for purchase, but I just wanted to point it out there. You can take classes online and at a training site near you. And I just want to point out these tutorials, you've learned everything you can from the tutorials, but you really just want to take a SolidWorks training course. I really highly suggest the Fisher Unitech training courses, and that's my sales pitch for right now. But if anybody has any questions about what's going on with that My SolidWorks, go ahead and throw a chat into the Q&A. I'd be happy to answer it. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting for that? All right, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Dan. So Dan, I'm handing presenter to you.
All righty. Okay, get my screen showing here. So Heather, some great tips on My SolidWorks too. I feel like in tech support, that's something we're seeing more and more of, is just people using My SolidWorks and different things you're going to use My SolidWorks for. Not even limited to what you're talking about here, even for things like accessing the admin portal, like to see what licenses are active and maybe switch some of your licenses over to online licensing if you wanted to do that. So I think mentioning My SolidWorks is great here because it just kind of gives everybody a reminder that you probably want to get in there and see what you've been missing if you haven't been in there in a while, because there's a lot of really great resources. Okay, so I have a kind of a quick topic here, but it's something that I've been talking about a lot lately, just because I feel like a few of these things have come up pretty frequently here in tech support, and it's definitely something that not only SolidWorks users, but I really think everybody could benefit from. So I'm mentioning three different, we'll call them options, or three different settings you can adjust in your BIOS here on your machine. Specifically, these probably do refer to a Dell machine. I have a Dell machine myself. I think Dell is kind of one of the more common machines that we see in tech support, but these really should apply to other BIOS systems as well, and really other machines. But some of the screenshots you'll see here are specifically from Dell. So before kind of going forward here, how do you get to the BIOS? You reboot and tap F2. And on a Dell machine at least, and that's going to prompt you to go into the BIOS setup. But as a disclaimer, this is what we say in tech support as well. Proceed with caution and consult your IT pro if you're not comfortable with the BIOS. If you're not comfortable with things like changing the BIOS or making registry changes, there are areas where if you're not familiar or not careful, you could effectively do some damage to your machine, or at least irreparably change the machine. So it would be good to have an IT pro available with you if that's not something you're comfortable with. But disclaimers aside, moving forward here, right? What are the three options? What are the three things I really think are valuable in the BIOS? So you reboot your machine, you tap F2, you get into the BIOS setup, and the BIOS is basically the underlying rules of your machine even before the operating system loads in. So the first one is, I'd say, the most impactful one that I'll mention here, and it's called Intel Speed Step. And I actually came across this myself, and I have since seen it on coworkers' machines and even on customer machines now as well. So my machine, as Heather mentioned before, was going slower and slower, and it seemed like, hey, I've got a year-old, really high-end Dell workstation. It shouldn't be struggling to open PowerPoints and operate base level SolidWorks parts and do things like that. And at the same time, I was getting error messages on my machine about my power supply, my laptop power supply being unrecognized. It was kind of like a cryptic Dell message, but it was saying something like your power supply is not recognized, your computer is still charging, but it might not be operating to the highest capacity, something like that, right? I never connected the two or thought anything of it, but it turns out that what this Intel Speed Step option does is if your machine senses a lower power state, this gives the operating system, or the BIOS in this case, the right to kind of dial back performance to save battery. So I think a lot of these options we see here in the BIOS are things that allow the machine to save battery, save power, conserve power wherever possible. And I know manufacturers like Dell and other manufacturers are probably under a lot of pressure to implement things like this to save power, use less energy, conserve battery, all those things. But for people running high-end workstations, like Dell workstations with graphics cards that use a lot of battery and things like that, I think these things end up doing more harm than good. So In my case, I turn this off. So you see here in the screenshot, it's off. And by the way, this is a digital picture, right? Because you can't take screenshots, at least I don't think you can, of BIOS because it's actually before the operating system boots. So excuse the kind of slanted picture from my cell phone. But turning this off tells the machine, kind of regardless of whatever power state you're in, don't dial back the processor clock. Don't dial back the processor performance. So I saw a dramatic improvement from this. I have since got a new power supply and haven't seen it since, but I've seen it affect other people's machines who weren't even getting that message. So I don't know that it's unique to that message or unique to the power supply. I frankly just want my machine running at full capacity all the time, regardless of power state. So I went ahead and turned this off. So I think if there was one of the three here that was most impactful, this is probably the most impactful. Second one is one that you may have come across here in tech support if you called into tech support before. It's called Switchable Graphics. Switchable Graphics is interesting because a lot of Dell machines and a lot of laptops will ship with 2 graphics cards. It's usually an integrated onboard Intel card, like a card that's integrated into the chassis of the laptop, and then a separate dedicated GPU, like an NVIDIA card or something like that. And NVIDIA seems to be the most common one that we see. So what Switchable Graphics does is it lets the operating system use the lower end card kind of as the default, and then anytime it senses the need for the higher end card, it switches to the higher end graphics card. And again, I think the underlying theme here is to save battery, conserve power, use the lower end card unless otherwise specified. So for saving battery and doing all that, hey, that's great. But for SolidWorks, it's not so great. And even over the last, I'd say 6 years, I've seen this cause really serious problems with trying to kind of switch between SolidWorks, especially external programs from SolidWorks, things like SolidWorks Visualize or SolidWorks Composer, things that are not necessarily running under the same same process as SolidWorks. So you really get into some confusing times or confusing scenarios for SolidWorks. So I go ahead and turn this off. Again, we're not worried about saving power here, right? We need these machines to run at full speed and really handle SolidWorks. And I've seen this fix a lot of issues. There's other ways around this, like you can edit your NVIDIA control panel and set options to prefer the operating system to use the GPU all the time. I've still seen it ignore that or cause issues with that as well. So this is kind of like the brute force method. Turn this off. Do not do switchable graphics. Just dedicate the GPU. The name it calls out here is NVIDIA Optimus. That's the one from NVIDIA, but AMD has one as well called Power Express. So, I mean, these are different technologies from these different card companies, but again, I think the underlying theme is to try and conserve power. So between these two options, the first one I did here was Intel SpeedStep, and the second one is Switchable Graphics. These are two things that are meant to conserve power, but really in the long run may be really affecting your SolidWorks performance. So you might want to go ahead and turn those off. This third one, I'll say, is one that maybe doesn't necessarily affect SolidWorks, but threw it in here as a bonus because I think it's pretty cool. It's called USB Powershare. If you're someone that travels, maybe you're taking your laptop to SolidWorks World, or you're taking your laptop to a customer site, or whatever, it's in your backpack and you're traveling. Turning this on, this is kind of like a little bonus option here, but turning this on turns your laptop into kind of like an external power source. So you can plug your phone into it, you can plug your tablet into it, whatever the case may be, and your laptop with that big giant, usually I think it's a lithium-ion battery in the laptop, becomes a Powershare or a power device, a power brick to charge your phone or charge anything, even when the laptop is off. So your laptop's off, it's in your bag. You got a nice long USB cable. You can just kind of power it right from the laptop. So kind of a cool one. Again, not really affecting SolidWorks, so to speak, but definitely a nice one to know about. And if I just realized, I just kind of realized something, Heather. All three of my options here are talking about using more power. So speed step, switchable graphics, and then draining the battery here with Powershare. So it's like a common theme through my tip here is like, let's just drain as much power as possible here. But hey, I think it'll end up giving you really a good performance out of your machine. So that is it for me in my BIOS tips and tricks here. Any questions too, you can certainly throw them into the chat, and Heather and I will get to them here at the end of the presentation. All right, Heather, well, I transferred the presentation back to you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Yeah, you just need all the power there from your laptop. I also really like that USB one. Didn't know about that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I do like that one.
Okay, and just bear with me a second, guys, while Webex has all of these fun icons that like to come up and block your screen where you're trying to show people things, and it's great. There we go. And just all right, so the last topic I want to talk about is what file property locations do I need to change when upgrading SolidWorks? So a lot of people are starting to upgrade. SP3 should be out pretty soon, which is a service pack that people like to upgrade to. And a lot of times when you upgrade, sometimes you leave the old versions behind, or sometimes you get rid of them, but either way, it's always good to upgrade all of your settings in SolidWorks. I'm going to talk about 4 settings that we need to upgrade. So I'm going to talk about your toolbox, I'm going to talk about your file locations, I'm going to talk about your templates, I'm going to talk about your file locations, and then I'm going to talk about your other SolidWorks apps and some places there that you might need to upgrade. First off, toolbox. This is always a fun one, and I'm going to lump in a few things here. So let's head over to SolidWorks. So if I've ever been in SolidWorks and when I load up my new message and I'm getting this error loading the toolbox, issues, adding toolbox components into my assemblies, most likely what it is I created a new data location, or my company created a new data location if I'm on a shared toolbox or a PDM toolbox, and I need to make sure I'm pointing to that. I have done another straight from support on upgrading the toolbox within SolidWorks PDM if that's what you guys are using. And if you want to check that out, be sure to check out the old YouTube archives. I'm just going to show you if you have a toolbox location and you want to update it to the newest version. I'm going to go here. Right now it's pointing to a Volt toolbox. I don't want to mess with that right now. So we're going to go to C. And notice I have this SolidWorks data 2018 and 2019. And if I accidentally have it pointing to my 2018, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the Tool Wizard Advanced Whole Database. It's not the expected version, current version 21, expected version 22, which is SolidWorks 2019. And if it's pointing to that location by default, that means either your toolbox needs to be updated, which I've walked through in another straight from support, or I just need to point to the right one. And to do that, we let SolidWorks think because it doesn't like that the toolbox is wrong. I hit the little ... I go to C, which is where my SolidWorks data is. By default, you might get like SolidWorks data 1, SolidWorks data 2. I like making mine clean and having the SolidWorks 2018, SolidWorks 2019. The way you can do that is when you're installing SolidWorks, the last screen on that summary screen, you get all of these options. I'm not going to have this available to change right now, but I can actually change, if it's my first time installing, I can change this, and this is where I would change and modify it to say SolidWorks 2019 rather than SolidWorks data parentheses 2, because it just makes it a lot cleaner. It makes me exactly know what my 2019 data is. And I do that for here as well. You can see I do C program file SolidWorks Corp 2019, just because I like keeping all of my files nice and clean. I like knowing where everything is. And then I would install it, and it would install to those proper directories, and that's how I get this data 2019. I select the folder, it thinks for a second, or 5 seconds. And it is happy, and I've updated my toolbox location. So that right there is a really good just hint if you're getting issues with your toolbox. And a lot of people have toolbox turned on in the add-ins by default. So you're logging in and you're getting errors with your toolbox. And you feels like you can't even open up your new version of SolidWorks because you have all these errors. Fixing that a lot of times will really help out. Going there, and I can see here when I hover over my toolbox, it's pointing to that SolidWorks Data 2019 browser, and I have all of my SolidWorks 2019 toolbox components. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is templates and formats, and this is one I see get skipped over a lot. A lot of people, they upgrade and they don't upgrade their templates and they don't upgrade their sheet formats. And in tech support, we've gone back and seen people have sheet formats from 2008, and they're starting to get a little bit buggy, or they're starting to just not work really well with SolidWorks because they're 10, 11-year-old sheet format. So I did have a question that I want to go back to on Toolbox. So I had a question, what if you've modified your toolbox and you point to the new one? Are the changes lost? In that case, when you've modified your toolbox, when you go through and when you do your upgrade, if it's a company-wide toolbox, somebody needs to upgrade that toolbox. So you can actually upgrade your toolbox to the new version, and they've actually added in a setting where you can upgrade and make a copy of the old one. So if you're still working in 2017, but you also want to work in 2018 or 18 and 19, you can upgrade the toolbox and have a old 17 or 18 toolbox sticking around. That way people can still work in the older version, but when you go to upgrade, you want to make sure that option to upgrade the toolbox so you don't lose any of those changes you've made to your custom toolbox. All right, now templates and sheet formats, and like I said, I've seen these cause some issues, and I've seen they just don't get upgraded a lot because we do have to go in and upgrade them, especially the sheet formats or our custom sheet formats or our custom templates. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm working in SolidWorks 2019, but I'm going to, let's just make a square here so I have a part to make a drawing of. There's my piece. And now I'm going to do File, Make Drawing from Part. I'm just going to save my part somewhere. And I select my drawing. And I notice here that I actually have just all these sheet formats, but I know I made custom sheet formats at some point in time, specifically for the Straight from Support webcast. So I go here. All right, so I made the folder, but in 2019, they're not there. So let's go back. Let's look in 2018. So this is in C Program Data SolidWorks 2018. That's the default location for your sheet format. I go to Lang English. I see my sheet format, and I do have all of these Straight from Support ones, but these were created April of 2018. They definitely haven't been upgraded in the 2019 version. And I'm probably not going to have too big of an issue here just with these right now. They're only a year old, but I want to go and upgrade them anyway. So I have this sheet format, and it looks like my Straight from Support is a B-size Straight from Support sheet format. And what I want to do is I want to just save it up to my 19 version, and I'm going to keep that separate in that SolidWorks data so that I have 19 versions and I have 18 versions. So I'm going to do File, Save Sheet Format. And I want to put it back in the 18 because I don't want to overwrite my 18 sheet format. What if I need to use that in 18? Because if I overwrite this and try to use it in 18, I'm going to get a future version error. So instead, I'm going to go back to 2019. And just as some prep for this, I'd already made that straight from support folder. You guys saw that earlier probably. Straight from support, save it. And now I have an upgraded to 2019 sheet format. It's just a little bit cleaner. It's been saved. I'm going to probably not run into issues relating to the sheet format here. All right, so I've done that there. Don't save. What about part and drawing templates? Same thing goes for these. Sometimes these need to be updated. The defaults always get put in new when you upgrade them to your newer version. So if you go to that C program files, SolidWorks Corp year, SolidWorks, might be steering you guys the wrong way. Sorry about that. So your default templates get put in program data. So it's going to be C program data. This is a hidden folder. So if you guys don't see this program data folder, just go to view and you can toggle off and on your hidden items. And I'm going to program data. SolidWorks 2019, templates, and these default ones, they always get created when I go through here. So here are my default templates. But if you guys had some custom ones, same thing, just open them up. So I would put them in here. I would open up my sheet formats, and I'd save them to my new version. I don't have any custom SolidWorks templates. I tend to just use the defaults there. But that's another thing that you want to upgrade every year. And remember to keep your program data separate. So 17 goes with 17, 18 goes with 18, 19 goes with 19. Apparently I skipped 16. But just make sure to have that in there. So that's another good thing to make sure you upgrade every year. All right, the next thing I want to cover is file locations, and there are a few that we see get commonly missed, and then there are just some good habits to get into for all of them. So let's go ahead and jump back to SolidWorks. So if I look at my file locations, I'm going to go to Options and File Locations. First, I'm going to hit the big one, the one that seems to hit a lot of people. And that is this this whole wizard callout file. I'm actually pointing to the wrong spot. So what this does is this, if you ever see like a mod diameter thing, this could be affecting it here. And if you notice, it's pointing to the wrong one. So I would have to go and point to the correct one. So I'd go into my program files, so see, program files, SolidWorks Corp, SolidWorks, Lang, English, and I'd look for this. It's called a GTOL sim file. I must have accidentally upgraded my 18.1 to 19, so actually it looks to be located right here. 2018, SolidWorks, Lang, English. And there are a few places this can be located, but you just locate it before and then you put it up there. But I'm going to hit this Edit All button. And what I notice here is a lot of my paths are actually pointing to those old 2018 locations. I don't want them to be pointing to my 2019 locations. I want them to be all in the most upgraded bend table templates or BOM templates. Now, if I have custom bend table templates, BOM templates, these would be pointing to my network locations. But in this case, I normally just use the SolidWorks defaults. And a little trick I want to show you is if I hit Find Replace, I replace 2018 because I've kept my files so standard with how I named them, and I replace that with 19. I can just replace anything that was pointing to 2018, not a 2019. I'm just going to do a quick scroll through to make sure I didn't have something pointing to 16 or 17. I don't believe I did. Hit save, and now all of those are updated and working properly. So I know I have the latest and greatest of those standard templates. All right, the last thing is other programs, and I'm going to pull up two programs and show you how. First, I'm going to pull up the inspection add-in. So this isn't actually another program, but it is something, an add-in working within SolidWorks. And when I hit my new project, notice I get these templates that I can pick from. And what I notice here, all of mine are pointing to 19 because mine's updated properly. But sometimes this can point to the incorrect location, and I can just add and make sure I'm using the SolidWorks 2019 inspection add-in. So that's what I want to make sure I'm doing there. I want to make sure I'm pointing to the correct template locations. I've seen these feedback for some reason, so you just add and you pick that correct folder. Another extra promo, and you guys use a lot, or not, Treehouse a lot in straight from support, and these templates can become out of date. So if you notice, you have template locations, and I default do my training files because this tends to be an issue with Toolbox. But if I saw that they were pointing back to my 16 templates, all I need to do is remove that from there, hit add. Okay, I need my templates, so let's go to C, Program Data, SolidWorks 2019, templates, default templates, and select that folder, hit apply. And now I'm using those 2019 default templates whenever I create my treehouse parts. So when I drag in this assembly and a few parts into it, I know when they get created, it will create them with my 2019 templates. So I'm all up to date there. All right. So we talked about 4 things. We talked about upgrading them in the toolbox, making sure our toolbox is pointing to the right location. We also did a discussion on what happens if we need to modify our toolbox, how we can upgrade it from there. Our sheet formats, we talked about how those don't automatically get updated because we have custom ones, so how to upgrade those, our sheet formats and document templates. Our file locations, how to do it individually, and then how to do just a mass file location update. And then other programs that we looked at, inspection and treehouse, and how to point those to the right